And on to our next story here in St. Johns County. The school board members are meeting right now to discuss the future and the safety of students. This all stems from the school shooting that occurred in Parkland, Florida, where a gunman opened fire, killing 17 people. And board members are trying to prevent something like that from happening here. Now, First Coast News' Jeff Valin, he joins us live with more.
Katie, good afternoon. That meeting is happening and right behind these doors here. It's really all about Senate Bill 7026, which passed in March, what its implications are and how it is to be applied here in the St. Johns School District. So, among other things, an app that students will be able to use come fall called Fortify Florida. They can use that to report what they believe may be threats. It's not necessarily, and I tweeted earlier that it might be for use in active situations. I've been corrected on that. It might not be functional in that sense of things, but it should be up and running by the fall. Also appointing a 16-member safety commission, active shooter drills, at least one per semester for K through 12 students, threat assessment teams, mental health assistance. That funding has already helped to hire 3 social workers, 6 mental health counselors, and 2 school psychologists. One big problem, however, is a gap of a requirement of one school resource officer, I'll call that an SRO, per school, with 39 schools in the district and only 15 currently in place, including 4 floaters. That is a huge gap, and the dollars gap, the superintendent is saying, is one of about $1 million, give or take. We're not sure exactly how or when that might be bridged, that gap of school resource officers, 1 per school in the district. But of course, there's a lot of meeting left here happening today. This started just about 90 minutes ago, and the St. John Sheriff's Office is here as well, not only to listen, but to also give input. So we'll be hearing a lot more from them, and we'll be here throughout. We are live in St. Augustine. Jeff Valin, First Coast News on your side.